Hello, everybody, and welcome to another podcast with Investing Education Academy. You have myself, Brent Simpson, along with the co-founder Leon Noble. Today, I guess I'll be doing a little bit of housekeeping and telling you why we chose the topic. So we're going to be talking about credit. And you hear people talk about how to get rid of credit, how to hide something from your credit report, how to remove credit, how to repair credit, what credit is, FICA versus your actual credit score, what's TransUnion versus Experian. There are a lot of people put out a lot of um, hype around what is and what isn't around credit. Today, Leon and I, with Investing Education Academy, are going to take a very basic approach to talking to you about credit. And what I mean by basic is we actually did our homework and came up with something we think you like. But I am going to let Leon tell you why we chose this topic today while I just clean up one or two things, and I'll be right back with you.
Yeah, so and nice. Primary reason is really centers around interest rates. So anyone who's listening to us, following us the past couple of years, but even more recently, like the past year and a half, we know interest rates were raised at a historically fast pace. We all felt it in our credit cards, car loans, mortgages, all that. At one point, mortgages got above 8%, 8% for a 30-year fixed mortgage, which historically is actually still low, but in our generation, that's extremely high because we're used to anywhere from like 2 to 5%. So what's happening now is rates are coming down, right? The Federal Reserve is now cutting rates, which is awesome. And so Brent and I kind of wanted to bring it to everyone's attention to revisit things in your life that surround interest rates. Any loans you have, any credit cards you have, loans being like your mortgage, your car loan, anything you have outstanding. One thing that's happening right now, and one thing we're a big proponent of, is a lot of people are refinancing their mortgages because some people that bought homes in the last year and a half have rates above 7%. Some people have rates above 8% right now, which is kind of hard to believe. The average 30-year interest rate in this country right now is about 4 to 5%.
And when you say 30-year, you're talking about for a mortgage?
Yes, mortgage. Yeah, 30-year fixed mortgage. The average rate is about 4 to 5%. But some people have it over 8% because they bought a home in the last year and a half. So we're really trying to bring everyone's attention, like, hey, rates are coming down. So now you want to revisit anything that has interest rate, your mortgages, your car loan, really your credit cards. That's kind of what Brent's going to touch on a bit today. Is credit card rates are ridiculous. I mean, my rates right now, my credit score is high sixes, low sevens. Working it back up from really, really low. But my rate on my cards right now are north or right about 30%. I know an individual who has an 800 and no, she's about a 780 score, and her rates are just below 30%. So even with a quote unquote good score, your rates are high. Now, I will say one thing she did is she actually called her after talking to me, as what Brent and I talked about a couple weeks ago. Call your credit card company and inquiry about your interest rate. She actually called and got her rate lowered because she said, hey, my rate is at, I think it's like 28%. That's crazy, yada, yada, yada. Can it be lowered? And then she lowered it, I think, by 2. It's not great, but they lowered it, I think, down to 26. Then she got 2% percentage points off. Better than 28. So we're talking about credit now because rates are coming down, and we can actually do something about moving our interest rates lower, refinancing any outstanding loans, and or even just calling your credit card company, just blatantly asking for a lower rate.
All right. So for me, what we did was we essentially just called the credit card company. So the information you're about to receive from us is me personally calling American Express and having a conversation with them about credit. All of you all who have a credit card, more than likely on the back of your card, just flip it over. There's a 1-800 number. You should be calling that 1-800 number anytime you have a question about your credit. Again, this company works for you. They're there to make sure, whatever your needs are met, your needs are met. So use them. And if you have questions, if you have concerns, don't think, well, oh, they'll think I'm, uninformed, or maybe they think I'm not sophisticated. I don't want to be embarrassed. I should know this already. Don't let that stop you from calling that 1-800 number. They are there to help you. And also, too, sometimes it's not a question of like what's wrong. You might just be curious about how credit works. Call and ask them. Many of these credit card companies have classes. They have videos they can send you on credit. They have YouTube stations, and if you call and ask them about it, you can open yourself up to receiving a lot of information to make you a more informed credit user just by calling a 1-800 number. So want to start there. You have a vehicle ready to help you. Now, phone call to American Express, but everybody wants to know what happened. All right. So my credit score is roughly like an 816, 820, 830, somewhere in that space.
And the max credit score is what?
850.
So Brent is in the upper like 90th percentile.
Oh yeah, but it was, you know what? If anybody inside of Investing Education Academy wants to know how I got my credit score to this level from a 520, let me know. Give me a call. Contact me in the platform. Now, outside the platform, contact me in the platform. Send me a message, and I'll tell you the exact way I got my credit score up to this point. And it is not complicated, and it's not one of those like fix your credit quick schemes. It's legit. I did it anyway. So I called American Express. Many of you know American Express is one of the cards. Some say it's harder to get than others, but a lot of people have them.
I would say it's gotten better. It's gotten easier now because they're targeting, because their client base is typically older people with money. So they're now targeting millennials and Gen Z, which is anyone from 18 to like mid 30s. They're really targeting that generation now because they got to grow their user base. So it's made it a lot easier to get American Express the last couple of years.
Yeah, and also too, a big thing about American Express is they used to primarily have the travel and business cards. So they didn't have a large selection of cards until maybe like the last 10 years, where they started having a multitude of cards. So number one, before we start, everybody's credit is different. Your phone call to your credit company may be different than what I'm about to tell you. Different credit card companies, even if they're all Visa credit cards, calculate their interest rates a little bit different. It's the standardized way to do it, but what they consider points, because some credit card companies, if you have a certain number of points, will put those points towards your principal. Others won't. So if you get cash back, some people will collect cash back in like essentially a little holding space for you inside of your credit card, and then they apply your cash back points to lower your premiums. So just understand, different credit card companies may not work exactly how Leon and I are about to tell you now, but this is how American Express, what they told us when we called.
The reason they're different is because credit cards are issued by banks, especially like Brent said, if they're Visa, they're issued by individual banks. Visa is just kind of like a holding company that has a whole bunch of technology behind it that runs the cards. But you have Bank A that will issue a Visa, Bank B that will issue a Visa, and they can have totally different rules on like Brent said, rates, cash back, things like that. So that's why they can be different.
All right. So now looking at what I did, the phone call, I have a balance of $614.52. Now the balance doesn't matter. This still works about the same way. The principles of what I'm going to tell you work if you have a $10 million balance, if you have a $2,000 balance, if you have a $9,000 balance, if you have a $500 balance, if you have a $10 balance. So what happens is you have what's connected to your balance is how much money you spent. Let's talk about what these things mean. Your balance is how much you spent and have not paid off that it stays with your credit card up until month after month. Now your rate is your APY, annual percentage yield. That, like Leon said earlier, for most people, credit cards is over 10% at the minimum. You have some people paying up to 35-40% on some of these APYs, is your annual percentage yield, which is the rate that you pay per year on the credit card. So what is mine in this scenario? My rate with the 800 and something odd credit score is 29.99%. So if you have a lower than that, good for you. But again, I also have a business American Express card, so it's 29.99%. Now, when you have and I'm looking at my notes, the main notes. So if you see me looking off, when you have your balance, or they call it sometimes your principal balance, that is the amount, again, like I said, is how much you've charged and what's still on the card. When you're trying to lower that, we think, okay, I'm going to pay what they say is the required minimum payment, and that should keep lowering my balance. Yes, but maybe not the way you think. So what happens is your balance is the year, month to month. So this month, let's say, is January. In February, your balance is going to be whatever that principal balance was in January minus the principal amount you paid on that card last month. So hear me again. Let's say it's January and your principal balance is whatever it is. For in this case, I'll just use me, $614.52. In February, you would think if my minimum payment, which in this case, my minimum payment was $29 required, right? So you would think that, if $29 is required, and originally my balance was $614.52, $614.52 minus $29 leaves me with what I would think to be a balance of $585.52, which you would think, right? No. The way it works is your principal balance in January moves over to February minus the principal amount. Don't forget, we had what's called the APY. So every month when we pay our minimum balance this is on every credit card. Your minimum balance is comprised of your APY. Is combined of your principal amount, the minimum amount they require you to pay, and based off the principal amount, and then also the interest. So again, your minimum payment is the interest rate times what was your principal rate from last month, and that's what gives you the interest that you owe on it. And that is what that plus the minimum payment minus the interest is your total minimum payment due. So in this case, did that make sense, Leon?
You gotta bring it. You gotta bring it.
I felt like it was a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of math.
So okay, so this is what happens. If you have $614,
just use round numbers. Just say like $1,000. Round numbers.
Okay, $615 is your balance, right? And they say $29 is your minimum payment. That is going to be the amount that is actually going to reduce your principal amount plus the interest they're charging you from that last month. Everybody, I'm going to pause right there. So I should have said it cleaner the first time. So again, your minimum balance is going to be the amount that's going to lower your principal plus the interest from last month's principal amount. And that is what's your minimum payment. Now, in this scenario, with a balance of $615, my minimum payment was $29. That $29, of that $29, $15.54 was going towards lowering my principal. $15.54 was going towards lowering my principal. $13.46 was going to the credit card company as interest from last month. That is almost 50% of what I was paying. So you might think, but the interest, the APY is 29.99. How is it that you're paying almost 50% in a month on your minimum payment? Because I'm paying the minimum payment. So although that interest rate, if you look at the larger principal amount, which is $614, it does reflect that month's interest on that amount, but they're only giving me $15.54 towards lowering my principal. And when you look at how much they're putting towards lowering my principal, it's almost 50% of what I'm paying every month.
So okay, real quick question. So let's say, your minimum payment is $29, but let's say you had a good month, so you're going to drop $100. Is it still, out of the $100, are they going to take $50 towards principal and $50 toward interest, or does it do you get more money towards principal, or is it still the same 50% split?
Okay. Let me make sure I understand your question correctly. So your question is basically, if I'm paying $100 and not the $29 that is my minimum payment,
mm-hmm.
does a larger portion go towards lowering my principal.
Right. Or is it the same 50% split?
No. So what happens is the interest rate gets frozen at whatever that was going to be. So let's say in this case, $13.46 is going towards $36.46 goes towards my interest. So I'm just going to do this real quick.
Not 36 because you're paying 20.
$13.46 goes towards interest.
Oh, out of the 100.
Yeah,
Okay.
out of 100.
Okay, got
So
you.
you're looking at roughly, $87 that is going to go directly towards principal.
And that's a great example of why and we've all heard it. If you pay the minimum, it'll literally take you like 600 years to pay this thing off. And that's why they say, you got to pay, a lot more than that, because you just showed the example. If you pay the minimum, 50% of that amount goes to interest and payment, which can take you much longer to pay it off. Pay $100, almost $87 goes to pay off your balance, and that $13 or whatever goes to interest. So I guess moral of the story is pay like triple if you can. Pay like triple the minimum, because you'll pay down that debt so much faster than paying the minimum.
Yeah, and this is a great point, Leon. We don't want to pay the minimums, and that's what we're trying to show you all today. The amount, really, the principal amount doesn't matter in this example. What we want you to walk away from is that interest rate is, yes, it effectively is the respective percentage for that month of the total amount that's owed on the card. But because they made the amount of principal paying off that debt so low, you essentially you're barely moving the needle. So in this scenario, with a $600 and let's say roughly $15 balance from the previous month, and only $15 going towards principal, I'm still hovering right around $600 going into the next month. But this is the thing: the next month, the interest that's going to be charged on that is going to be about $12. So I'm going to be back to about $612 the very next month.
So effectively, you pay $2 or $3 on your payment
by the next month.
On the next month payment, right?
And so if you miss that month, you're talking about getting a $29 fee or $35 fee in late fees. So you're going to be above what was originally owed just 2 months ago from missing one payment. And now interest starts to accrue on that total amount, not just the original amount. So this is like a huge snowball effect. And so when we think, oh, well, you know what, I'm just a little bit late, I'm a day late, I'm 2 days late. Credit card companies, some give you a buffer, some give you 5 days, even after the due date to pay. Some people, it's the due date, and the day after the due date, they hit you with late fees. But those late fees are not a small thing. Some late fees are $100. And you're talking about your minimum payment was only going to be $29. And the amount going towards your principal was only going to be $15. But you just got $100 late fee or a $30 late fee. That's almost double what would have been lowering your interest rate.
So I just want to make the point again real quick. On Brent's example, if he had paid the minimum of $29 based on his $650 payment, the very next month we looked at his bill, it's only going to be reduced by about $3. Literally $3, because again, the payment, half of that goes to interest, half of that goes to his bill. But then the interest he's charged for the February month is going to be what is that, roughly another
about almost it's going to be about $12.
About $12. So yeah, so he's going to look at his bill and say, okay, I paid $29. Next month, it's only going to be literally reduced by about $2 to $3.
But don't forget, my bill's only going to be reduced by $15.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, what's I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like you pay to them $29.
Yes.
But next month you look at your bill, you're going to see a reduction of about $3.
Yes.
Because again, the split of what's your payment and then the interest for February. That's why paying the minimum is credit card companies print money when we do that. And we're just giving them money every month. So that's why I say, if you can, if you got to pay the minimum, you got to pay the minimum, you got to do what you got to do. But if you can pay double, triple, quadruple, if you can, pay as much as you can, because that interest, like Brent said, it just snowballs. And if you get a late fee, it's terrible. And I've been there. Like that was like with me in college. Got credit cards, man. I was like 6-7 G's deep working at Giant. Couldn't pay the minimum. Man, I just abandoned all them things, stopped paying them. Credit went to like 350. And then the last, and I like Brent said in the past, I was more of a cash person because I got so burned by credit. But learn later in life, you got to have credit. So that's why I'm working on my credit. The last year and a half, really. I mean, I've been working on it for like 10 years, but really hardcore the last year and a half, hardcore.
So for all you all who are thinking like now, okay, now I understand what's happening. This is why we say you should call your credit card company. Leon and I did not run calculations to figure this out. We didn't spend 2-3 days trying to figure out the algorithm. We just called the 1-800 number.
Right.
They told me all this information. Like nothing, I didn't figure out any of this. They told me all of it. So when you're looking at that APY and you're like, oh, it's only this, how much of that every month is going to cover principal? Like when you look at your minimum payment, your APY is set. But then how much of the amount that you pay in your minimum payment is going to go towards principal? That's what you have to know. Because if you know how much is going towards principal, by default, you know how much is going towards interest. Interest is just going into the pocket of the credit card companies.
Printing money.
Like that's it.
Yeah.
And you're talking about giving them almost 50% of your payment every month because you don't want to spend the full amount. And some of you all who have revolving interest, I'm gonna call it that, and really revolving expenses like the DoorDashes, the Uber Eats, and the things of that nature that you really don't need. They're not necessities unless you have a debilitated thing that causes you not to be able to leave your house. In those cases, if you were to put the money that you were giving in tips towards interest, you would pay your credit cards off and probably faster than you would if you didn't. Let's just say that, because everybody's balances are different. So I don't want to throw a number out there. But on average, you're looking at about maybe 60, 50, anywhere from 40 to 65% of your payment every month going towards credit card companies. Mm-hmm. Call.
And another thing you really want to find out from them is what is the late penalty? How much is the late penalty? Because like Brent said, some cards, I think like the late penalty on mine is like $30. But like Brent said, like we were saying earlier, credit cards are issued by individual banks. So for me, it may be $30. For you, it could be $75. For Brent, it may be $100. Like you have to check with your company. But either way, it's so hard to pay, especially if you're paying the minimum per month and you get 1 or 2 late fees. I mean, it really, really snowballs and really can put you behind. So, like Brent said, just call the number. They have customer service. That's what they're there for. Just find out.
Yep. So everybody, that's it for us today. The takeaway message is this: call your credit card companies and simply ask them, questions. How much every month goes towards principal? How much every month goes towards interest? How long would it take to pay off the card if I paid the minimum? Ask them that. They can run a calculation. And if they can't, more than likely, if you figure out how much is being paid, you can run your own calculation. But the bottom line is be educated. Don't just simply apply for these cards blindly, because also some of these credit card companies have an annual fee. We didn't even talk about that. Annual fees can be anywhere from $100 to $300 to $2,000, depending on the type of card you have. So now they don't ask you to send them a check. What do? They just drop it onto your credit card.
Charge your card, right?
So all of a sudden you thought your card was paid off and you forget that you have an annual payment. It drops back on. And what happens? We don't check it because we didn't use it. And because we're not using it, we don't check it. And all of a sudden we have 2 months in late fees. So what does that do? It hurts your credit score. And now you have a fee that's more than what the interest will cover when you pay it the next month. Mm-hmm. And you start digging this hole, or even if you just have the money to pay it, you're really just throwing money to credit card companies. And, full disclosure, between Leon and I, we probably own a little piece of most of the credit card companies out there as stockholders. Mm-hmm. But, we still don't want our people throwing away money into these credit card companies. So take this information, do something with it, become educated, use the 1-800 number on the back of your card. If you want to figure out, how I got my credit score up to an 8, I'm roughly like an 825 or so, join IAA. I will share it with the community. I think actually we might be able to just do a post in there, and I'll just record a message and drop it, and people can ask me comments if they have any questions. So with that being said, thank you for being with us. We owe you 2 stock picks. You have to be in the community to join, but you can also join our Facebook group. And our Facebook group is Investing Education Academy. You just search for us. We should pop up. And we look forward to seeing you there. Leon, do you have anything before we go?
One last thing is, so I learned this from a friend of mine. So sometimes credit card companies will have like these windows of opportunity, and in those, and they don't tell you. Some will, let me tell you, some of them do, some of them don't. So she'll get updates from her credit card company that's saying, hey, you're eligible for a rate increase. Sorry, you're eligible for a balance increase. To increase the balance, increase the credit they have available. And that may be something some people, we always want more access to capital. So another thing you want to do is when you check on your rate, also check to see, do they run these windows of opportunity or these specials where you're eligible for an increase in your credit line. That's something else to ask about too. Not saying you need to use it, not saying it's needed, but when you increase your credit line limit, that actually helps lower your credit score, because they like to see that the amount that you're using, the amount of credit available to you is high relative to how much you're using. So if you increase the amount of credit,
Leon, I do want to say for everybody, make sure you don't have any big purchases coming up, be it a second home, a first home, a car, rental property, or anything like that. Because when you're applying for bigger credit, there's this thing called available credit. If your available credit is too high, credit card companies essentially not credit card companies, but the companies that you're looking to get credit from, because it might be a car company, not a traditional credit card company. If your available credit is too high, they can look at that as bad credit, if you will, or you can be a higher risk factor. Because if at any point in time you decide to exercise all that credit, somebody's not going to get paid back. Mm-hmm. So credit card companies issue that. But if you're looking to get something like a purchase through a mortgage or something big, just be careful that available credit isn't too high, because lending companies don't like to see that. So it is a good idea, and it will lower your credit a little bit, but paying your stuff on time, paying a little bit extra, that also gives you good credit. And then chasing down anything that's wrong on your credit report also too is very important. And you have to write letters to these people, not to the credit bureaus, not just hope that they take it off. You have to, action needs to be done to get anything incorrect off or to challenge them.
Yeah, good point. Because basically what I was referring to is your FICO score. Increasing your credit limit will help lower your score. That's one piece. But Brent has another good piece, that if you're looking to make a big purchase soon, that having that huge amount of, not huge, but having a lot more credit available could be detrimental to if you're trying to take out a loan. So yeah, good point.
All right, so everybody, we still owe you those stock picks. And again, if you want to dive into some of these topics that we're talking about here, please join our platform. You can find us at IEAmembers.com. Again, IEAmembers.com. We look forward to having some lively conversations over there. So we will talk to you very soon in 2 weeks, because we'll be back with the new podcast.